Natasha. I know that it's quite busy as people start to stream in, and I know that you've spoken to quite a few people. Despite all the technical gremlins that we are having this morning, who else have you seen this morning?
Well, I'm now joined by the DA's Chief Whip in Parliament, Cyril Ramaphosa. Thank you so much for joining us. The DA is also here to pay their respects. Just last week, a former DA MP said at the memorial of Frene Ginwala in Pretoria that she set a standard for all parliamentary speakers. Do you agree with that sentiment?
Absolutely. I mean, I think Dr. Ginwala, remember, would have been the first speaker of the first parliament, the first democratic parliament in South Africa, and she would have been instrumental in setting up the infrastructure that we would now follow in terms of what a national legislature is meant to do. And I think in many ways we owe very much about the work that Parliament is meant to do, the work that Parliament does do, some of the rules that are in place, to some of the work that she would have pioneered. And so I think we very much owe a great debt of gratitude to people like her who, when it was not easy to do so, stepped up to the plate and said, we will chart the way forward for a new and democratic South Africa. And so that is why we're here today, because we are of the view that a standard was set and a lesson was given to all of us. And I think now it's up to us to take on some of those lessons.
But this is quite a critical week for the DA. You're currently taking the ANC to court over cadre deployment. Tomorrow you'll be marching to their headquarters in Luthuli House. Others have seen this as an attack on the ANC and have questioned that why don't you go to, other institutions, parliaments perhaps, or, the union buildings in Pretoria?
Yeah. Look, while I think the two issues are wildly, obviously, very separate, because, of course, we're here to pay respects to Dr. Ginwala because of the role that she had in our democratic and in our constitutional democracy. And the issue around the march is very much something that we feel very strongly about. Our view is that each and every single one of the bad policy decisions which have been made, each and every single one of the bad economic decisions which have been made can all be led back to the ANC as an organization. It matters not for us to go and march to, a Megawatt Park, because it is not Megawatt Park that sets the policies. It's not the people who are in the board of ESCOM who are setting some of these policies. So what we are simply saying to the ANC is that South Africa is bleeding jobs. South Africans are tired of rolling blackouts, and this has catastrophic results for our economy. And so that is why we are having this action tomorrow. But of course, today is about paying our respects to the great Dr. Ginwala in this instance.
Cyril, thank you so much for your time. Let me just bring back into the frame. Well, they actually stole my guest from me, but Cyril, if I can just actually spend some more time with you while we actually wait for my guest to come back. Just speaking to our various and previous guests, they've been speaking about the degeneration of Parliament. That Parliament is not what it was.
Absolutely, and and that for me is the biggest tragedy, because I think we've had a really good blueprint, and it is an absolute tragedy for me that you can see a complete degeneration from the first parliament to the sixth parliament. The differences are vast, and you look at a parliament that is no longer interested in holding the executive to account, passing laws as it should, passing laws that are really to the benefit of South Africans. These are the functions of a parliament which are really enshrined in our constitution. The constitution is very clear about what Parliament is meant to do. And it worries me that we are straying further and further away from the blueprint that was already set. We were fortunate that at the dawn of our democracy, we had people who were constitutionalists. We had people who understood that we come from a painful history of apartheid, and therefore when we do the corrective measures, we must make sure that no government is ever too powerful to account to its own people. But over the years, we've seen an erosion of that. We've seen an erosion of that kind of legacy, and it is an absolute tragedy for me when we are sitting now where the Zondo Commission can say the kind of things that they've said about Parliament, how in effect Parliament as an institution has aided and abetted state capture. And I think if there were the likes and the ilk of the leadership of Dr. Ginwala, I think we would have seen a far more rigorous institution that wouldn't have allowed certain things like this to happen.
But one would argue that you're a member of parliament yourself. How do you ensure that, it's restored to its former glory?
Absolutely, and this is exactly why we have, as an organization, taken some of the recommendations made by Zondo to say change the rules so that we can make sure that we give effect to some of the things that have really been eroded in the past.
Sylvia, thank you so much for your time. I'm just going to try get my guests back, Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma. Ma, thank you so much. I saw you there just hugging Kasek Naidu. You've also come here to pay your respects to somebody that you also held quite dear to your heart.
Yes, Comrade Frene is very dear to my heart. Comrade Frene is one of the comrades who, when we arrived in exile as young women and young comrades, mentored us. We served together in the London Regional Political Committee, and they guided us, they mentored us. Whatever we've turned out to be, some of us, she contributed to the product that we are. But of course, that didn't end there. We came back home. She was very instrumental in insisting that when we go to Parliament, there must be women there. And she was one of those who fought at the front for at least a third of the women from the ANC to go, the component of the ANC to have a third of women. And she was very instrumental in achieving that. But it was also great just seeing her as our first Speaker of Parliament. She gave that House the dignity, the decorum, and of course the foundation, and insisted that that Parliament had to be a people's Parliament. Every South African must feel free and find that Parliament as theirs. But not only in word, but in deed, that there must be consultations with the people before legislation is made. People must be able to come to Parliament. Parliament must be able to go to the people. But of course, that Parliament carries a big responsibility because it didn't come for free. A lot of people sacrificed their lives. A lot of people died before they could see that Parliament after sacrificing their lives. So we must always bear that in mind, that we owe it to them to ensure that we uphold the decorum, we uphold good debates, we uphold the consciousness of the people in that Parliament.
Dr. Dlamini Zuma, you can't shy away from the fact that, as you come here and remember the late Dr. Ginwala, the ANC is seemingly facing, a lot of problems. We just spoke to the DA right now. Tomorrow they're marching to the ANC's headquarters. You have the problem of load shedding that people are actually putting at the front door of the ANC.
Well, Frene was a cadre. She was part of the struggle. As we remember her, she knows where she is, that the struggle continues. Yes, we are free, but there are still a lot of things that needs to be done. There's still a lot of economic freedom, for instance. People are still poor, hungry, unemployed. There's still a lot of inequality. So the struggle continues. And if the DA is marching, we taught them, we gave them that privilege to be free, because before you would have been shot. But the democratic ANC has given South Africa that freedom of expression, freedom to march, freedom to express yourself. So it's credit to the ANC.
Do you think ANC members should defend Luthuli House tomorrow?
Well, if they are going to attack it, it must be defended. But if they are doing everything legally, peacefully, it's their democratic right. And if they attack it, we defend it.
In the last days of Frene Ginwala's life, did she perhaps share any, notes with you or sentiments with you on the state of the ANC?
Not really. I did not get involved. I don't necessarily get too much involved in looking at the negative side of things. I like to, yes, there are challenges and we can't shy away from that. But the important thing is solutions. How do we solve? How do we face those challenges? And how do we work together to face those challenges?
Thank you so much for your time. And of course, as SABC News, we will try to get more reactions. I see there MEC Nomantu Raleho Konkomo actually walking up the stairs, and hopefully we can just actually get a comment from her, bite from her, as she's also the deputy chair of the ANC in the province and a member of the ANC Women's League. And you would know that the ANC Women's League was close to the late Dr. Frene Ginwala, as she actually helped rebuild the ANC Women's League in 1991, and she formed part of that very pivotal briefing, first crucial briefing of the ANC Women's League. Thank you so much for your time. The ANC Women's League is something close to your heart, something that was close to Frene as well. I mean, she helped in rebuilding the Women's League. She was for women emancipation. What lessons have you drawn from her?
We have learned a lot from Winnie. In fact, I was talking to some of my colleagues this morning and I was saying she's one of Imbokotos that must be respected. Our children, we must write books about the work that she has done in assisting and reviving women, in fighting for women emancipation, in fighting for empowerment of women. I think some of us are where we are now because we always wanted to be like her. I remember because I was once a deputy speaker in the legislature. And for me, I wanted to resemble what she used to do when she was speaker at the National Assembly, way back, because she's our first speaker at the National Assembly. And you can see the decorum of the house at that time when she was running the organization. So I think we have lost, but unfortunately, because Mama had to leave us on what is left from our side, Natasha, is to do exactly what she was doing before.
Mama, I don't know if you'll allow me to rope in, some of these questions. You're the ANC's deputy chair in this very province of Gauteng. Just talking about the province to national list, has Gauteng, the ANC in Gauteng, probably replenished its province to national list to make ANC Deputy President Paul Mashatile a priority to be sworn as an MP?
At the moment, we have not done that, but I think as provincial office bearers, we will have a discussion if the list needs to be replenished, because it's given to us, by the way. If it should be replenished, we'll definitely do that. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time, ma'am. Thank you. Of course, we will be getting more reactions. Let's just get more reactions here. Good. Thank you so much. You're live on SABC News, channel 404. I mean, we're just talking to Ma'am Nkomo Raleho right now about the late Dr. Frene Ginwala's role in the ANC Women's League, how she helped rebuild the ANC Women's League. Just talk us through those fond memories, perhaps.
Yes, indeed, the ANC Women's League used to be very strong, particularly when the founder members, like those that came after the founder members, they were there and they were very interested in making sure that the women have a voice in the ANC, because that is exactly why we need to have our own kind of movement to make sure that women have a voice in the ANC. And we used to be very vocal around issues like women representation. Remember when we started, it was 1/3, and then we started to say 50-50. So they were the ones that were there always, like my Bertha Gowa, Ma Winnie, and all of them, supporting us to make sure that we are able to work hard and to mobilize women. And they were the ones that have fond memories of the 1956 march and all of that things. They could really educate us, and they could really prepare us for the kind of responsibilities that women need to take up in the country and in the ANC. So that is why we really have fond memories of those that went before us. And we really remember, when I was wearing this uniform this morning, I was actually thinking of Maqawa, how she said you must make sure you've got a black shoe, you've got the stockings, of which we are not wearing stockings anymore, and then the blouse, how it should be worn, and all of that kind of things. But they made sure that they told us about the revolutionary responsibility, but also our responsibility as women and how we should carry ourselves. And that is why we've got this fond memories of those that came before us.
But you look at the current state of the ANC Women's League, is it anything to go by? I mean, are you satisfied as to where women in the ANC are right now, and the emancipation of women? The ANC Women's League has been saying time and time again that the ANC is ready for a female president, but that hasn't happened.
In the ANC, it's very difficult to say that things will just happen, because in the end, we can anticipate. It's leadership that you want it like that and that, but in the end, it's in the hands of the branches. And I should say, particularly if you look at the 2021 local government elections, it is actually very disappointing that you find our branches nominating more men than women. And even in the national conference of the ANC, there had to be a kind of a correction to make sure that there is female representation. So that is why I'm saying we still need to do more. We still need to do much more.
Mama, can I just quickly, Ma'am Nosiviwe, Speaker, how are you? Sorry, Mama, you're live on SABC News. I'm so sorry, Mama. We need to get this comments from you. Well, that is the current National Assembly Speaker, just sharing a kiss there with Ma'am Bridget. Ma, you've come to pay respects to somebody that you've looked up to. I mean, she was the first National Assembly Speaker. You're an Assembly Speaker yourself. What lessons have you drawn from her?
Firstly, and I must say this, that I think a number of us who will be here today, particularly those who were in Parliament right in 1994 at the first democratic Parliament in a democratic South Africa, you will know that there was a caucus of the African National Congress, which caucus of the African National Congress had to take a decision about who firstly the speaker would be and who the chief whip would be. And let me tell you, I am very proud that some of those women who were there on that day will be here today to bid Comrade Frene farewell, because we've fought very hard to make sure that Comrade Frene becomes the first speaker. We may have been very young, we may have not understood everything and the workings of Parliament, but we are proud that we were able to push at that caucus, because there were those who were challenging. We thought they could be better speakers as men, wearing their black suits, even from amongst our own, but we pushed as women of the African National Congress that Comrade Frene becomes the speaker. And of course she did very well. She commanded respect and earned the respect of all South Africans in that parliament. But not only that, Comrade Speaker was a feminist. Comrade Frene could be very firm, sometimes very erratic, but later on you sit back and reflect and say actually what she was raising was correct. So she was a fighter for human rights, a fighter for women, and I am glad that at this point in time I am here as the Speaker of the National Assembly to bid farewell to my comrades who we fought so hard for her to become the first Speaker of a democratic South Africa.
Thank you so much for your time. I wish I could take this conversation to Ma'am Bridget Motsepe, but unfortunately, because of time, we can't. Of course, you heard it there from National Assembly Speaker Nosiviwe Mapisa Ngakula. Various dignitaries are actually going inside the hall right now, where they will pay their last respects to the late Dr. Frene Ginwala. Of course, we do expect ANC President, I beg your pardon, Cyril Ramaphosa to deliver his eulogy here. And of course, we will be giving you more reactions from various dignitaries and leaders of various political parties. But that said, it's back to you in studio, Naledi.